Hello and welcome to the third module for the Adult Consumer Survey Refresher Training. This is Steph Giordano with HSRI. So we are going to get into the face-to-face survey with the person receiving services. This module will go over section 1 of that survey. Beginning with just a few reminders on protocol for section 1 of the survey. First, this section may only be completed by the person who is receiving services and supports. However, the person may have a translator available or someone to help facilitate communication. Before starting the survey, it's good practice to look through pre-survey information to fill in any familiar names or terms throughout Section 1 and Section 2 of the survey. As often as possible, the meeting should be conducted one-on-one. However, the person may have anyone present at the meeting he or she wishes. The meeting should be held in a quiet area. However, we strongly suggest finding somewhere other than the person's bedroom to complete the survey. Many questions will have suggested rephrasings. However, interviewers may use their own rephrasings and words that will help the person best understand the question. However, it's important when rephrasing a question to keep the intent of what that question is. Please code all questions appropriately. The only exception to this is if Section 1 cannot be completed by the individual, then the full Section 1 can be left blank. However, the end of Section 1 question for the interviewer must reflect that the Section 1 should be marked invalid. We start Section 1 with the suggested introductory script. However, interviewers can use any script that they choose. The important part here is just letting the person know what NCI is, what you'll be asking in the survey, letting them know that they can skip questions, that there are no right and wrong answers, and most importantly, that their services will not be affected immediately by how they answer questions. We also have a consent question at the bottom here, just ensuring that the person knows that they're able to decline the interview if they wish. And finally, we get to the questions for the individual. So this year for Section 1, we've moved the home section to the beginning of the survey. And this is based on feedback from interviewers who've noted that these questions tend to be easier to ask and have answered, and also tends to start the meeting off on a more positive note. So we start by asking whether the person likes their home or where they live. We now have a follow-up to this question if the answer is a no or in-between response to ask what the person does not like about where they live. Question 3 is then asked of everyone. We ask, would you like to live somewhere else? And it should be noted that both question 1 and question 3 can be a yes. However, it may take a little bit of follow-up to ensure that the person is understanding the questions as they're asked. These next questions are the same as last year. We ask whether people let the person know before they come into the home. While this does not include people who live in the home, we do want to include staff who have keys, so ensuring that staff knock or come only when they're scheduled or expected to arrive. We want to know whether people let the individual know before coming into their bedroom, and whether people have a place to be alone in their home. We then move to questions about employment and other daily activities, starting first with asking whether the person has a paid job in the community. We provide a definition here, but briefly we're looking for a paid job where the person is working around other individuals who do not have disabilities. You'll notice the bell symbol to the left of this question indicating that if you look to pre-survey question 7, if the person does have a job in the community, the name of that place of employment may be supplied, and you can use that job name as you ask this question. If the person does not have a paid job, we want you to ask whether the person would like to have a job in the community. For those who are working in a community-based job, we ask whether the person likes where they work and whether they would like to work somewhere else. And as noted in the questions about home, these can both be yes responses. These next few questions are slightly different from previous years. We now ask whether the person goes to a program or workshop, and specifically we're looking for programs or centers where they are working or doing activities only with other people with disabilities. If the person does go to a program or workshop, we ask whether the person would like to go more or less to the workshop or program. We now ask question 12, which is whether the person is taking classes, training, or doing something to help get a job or get a better job. And question 13 remains unchanged. We ask whether they are doing any volunteer work. The next part on safety is slightly different from last year. We now ask just 2 questions. First, whether there are any places where the person feels afraid or scared. And this here is a check all that apply. And then we continue to ask if the person ever feels afraid, is there someone that person can talk to? The next part is about friends and family, and this has also been slightly updated from previous years. We continue to ask whether the person has friends, and for this question there are 2 yes responses. The person has friends who are not staff or family, and that the person has friends who are not just staff and family. We have a new question 17, whether the person wants more help to make or keep in contact with friends. We continue to ask whether people can see their friends when they want to. However, we now have a follow-up. If the person is unable to see their friends when they want to, we are now asking why they're not able to do so. We now ask whether the person has other ways of communicating with friends, such as through the phone and email. We continue to ask if the person can go on a date if they want to, and if the person ever feels lonely. Question 23 is slightly revised from previous years. We now ask whether the person can see and or communicate with family when they want to. This next subsection is new this year, and it's about community participation and leisure. We added this based on feedback from states and interviewers who wanted to get more in depth from those questions about community inclusion, which you'll see in section 2. For this subsection, you start out with an open-ended question: what kind of things do you like to do when you go out? And this is to find out what kind of things the person likes to do in order to make these next few questions easier to ask. So we asked then, are you able to go out and do the things you like to do? And do you get to do the things that you like to do as much as you like? Question 25 asks, when you're at home, do you have enough things you like to do? And essentially we're asking here whether the person has enough things so that they don't get bored at home. We go on to questions about rights and privacy, and while these questions are not changed from previous years, it has been moved from section 2 into now section 1. So we're asking only the individuals whether people read their mail or email without asking first, whether they can be alone with friends and visitors at their home, and whether there are rules about having friends or visitors in the home. We also ask whether the individual can use phone and internet when they want to. And for this question, we want to be sure that we're not getting at access here, that if the person does not have access to internet at home or to a phone, we are asking about specifically rules and restrictions to using the phone or internet. We then go into questions about satisfaction with services and supports, starting with an introductory question: have you met your case manager or service coordinator? Slightly different from previous years, we now only ask a follow-up: does your case manager ask you what you want? So does the case manager ask what's important to the person? We then go on to ask some questions about the service plan, and these questions again have been updated a bit this year. So we ask this first question: do you have a service plan? And if yes, we go into some questions about the service planning meeting with a little intro script about what that is. So question 32 is, did you take part in the last service planning meeting? So did the person participate in that discussion? Question 33 is whether the person knew what was being talked about at the service planning meeting. And this includes both whether the person understood the words that were used, as well as whether the meeting was held in the person's preferred language. We now ask whether the service planning meeting included the people that the individual wanted to be there, and whether they were able to choose the services they got as part of their service plan. We hope that this section will really help illuminate whether individuals are actively taking part in their service planning meetings, and so really getting at some of that person-centered planning. Question 36 is slightly different from previous years. We ask, are you able to contact your case manager or service coordinator when you want to? And this is really getting at the responsiveness of case managers and service coordinators. We then ask a few questions about staff, which again have been unchanged from previous years. So whether the person has staff who help them, if staff treat the person with respect, and whether staff come and leave when they are supposed to. The final few questions of Section 1 are about transportation, and we updated these questions slightly again this year. So first we ask whether the person has a way to get places they need to go, so places like work or to appointments. And then we follow up with question 41, whether people are able to get places when they want to go somewhere or do something outside of their home. So doing something for fun, to see friends, go out for entertainment. And this is really to get at whether people are not only able to get transportation when they need to, but transportation when they want to. And question 42 is new this year as well. We ask whether services and supports are helping the person to live a good life. And then we come to the end of Section 1 question for the interviewer. This question is incredibly important as it will determine whether Section 1 will be used for data analysis. And so I'm going to be spending a little bit of time talking about this question. So we ask here whether the person appeared to understand questions and whether they gave answers in a consistent manner. While we do ask here whether the person appeared to understand most questions, what we're really looking for is whether the person understood and gave valid answers to any of the questions. If the person understood even one question, that answer can be marked and we can use that for data analysis. This question should only be marked no, that the person did not give consistent and valid responses if none of Section 1 should be used for data analysis. So I really want to emphasize here that this is really an all or nothing kind of a question. So again, if this question 43 is marked no, that the person was not able to give consistent and valid responses, then all of Section 1 will be marked invalid. However, this should only be used if the person was not able to understand or give responses for any of Section 1. That takes us to the end of Section 1 as well as Module 3. Thank you for listening, and the next module will go over the final part of the survey.